The British-flagged Madleen set sail from Sicily, Italy, bound for Gaza, not as a commercial vessel but as a ship of hope and humanitarian aid. Organized by the Freedom Flotilla coalition, its mission was to deliver life-saving supplies and challenge Israel's long-standing naval blockade. The Madleen carried essentials: baby formula, food, and medical equipment, basic necessities that had become scarce in Gaza's war-torn enclave. The voyage was a public act of civil disobedience, a direct response to the international community's failure to address Gaza's suffering. Prominent activists on board, including well-known public figures, turned the mission into a global news story. The FFC argued that sailing directly to Gaza exposed the inadequacy of existing aid channels and the urgency of the crisis. The war in Gaza, raging for over 600 days since October 2023, had created a humanitarian catastrophe, with UN reports warning that 1 in 5 Gazans faced starvation. Against this backdrop, the Madleen's crew believed their small vessel could make a significant statement and, if successful, deliver relief to those in dire need. Their journey was a symbol, ordinary citizens acting when governments would not. The Madleen's crew was a diverse group of unarmed activists, united by a common cause. Greta Thunberg, the renowned Swedish climate activist, brought global attention to the mission, expanding her advocacy to human rights. Rima Hassan, a French-Palestinian member of the European Parliament, lent political weight and a personal connection to the cause. Activists from Sweden, France, Brazil, and beyond formed a determined international community on board. They were teachers, artists, and advocates fully aware of the risks, especially after the deadly 2010 Mavi Marmara incident. Despite the dangers, they trained in non-violent resistance, determined to keep the mission peaceful and humanitarian. Their high-profile presence was strategic, hoping global attention would deter violence and amplify Gaza's plight. By risking their freedom, they aimed to turn the world's eyes to Gaza's suffering and demand urgent action. Their collective stand declared Gaza's crisis is a universal human rights issue, not a distant conflict. In the early hours of June 9, 2025, the Madleen's journey ended abruptly in international waters. The Israeli Navy intercepted the aid ship, surrounding it far from Israel or Gaza's coast. The FFC described the interception as aggressive. Drones sprayed a white substance causing eye irritation, and communications were jammed. Disturbing sounds blared over the radio, adding psychological pressure. Video footage showed activists, including Thunberg, in life jackets with hands raised, signaling peaceful surrender. Israeli forces boarded the ship without resistance, taking control of the vessel and its humanitarian cargo. The legality of the interception was immediately questioned, as international maritime law generally protects freedom of navigation on the high seas. The FFC called it a violation of international law, while Israel insisted it was necessary for national security. The confrontation became a flashpoint, raising urgent questions about the blockade's reach and legitimacy. The world watched as a humanitarian mission collided with military power on the open sea. Anticipating interception, the activists had prepared a pre-recorded message for the world. In the video, Greta Thunberg calmly declared they had been kidnapped in international waters by Israeli forces. The Freedom Flotilla coalition echoed this, framing the incident as the abduction of unarmed civilians and the confiscation of life-saving aid. Their message was clear: a peaceful mission met with military aggression. Thunberg urged viewers to pressure governments for their release, turning their detention into a catalyst for political action. The activists used their predicament to spotlight the blockade's legality, Gaza's crisis, and the right to peaceful protest. By controlling the narrative, they ensured their voices would be heard even in detention. Their story became a symbol of resistance, David versus Goliath on the Mediterranean. The Israeli government dismissed the mission as a media stunt, accusing the activists of seeking attention rather than delivering aid. Officials emphasized security concerns, insisting the blockade was vital to prevent weapons smuggling to Hamas. Israel claimed the flotilla ignored official aid channels in favor of political confrontation. Authorities released images of activists being treated well, countering claims of mistreatment. Israel pledged to inspect and transfer the seized aid to Gaza through official crossings, presenting itself as the responsible party. By doing so, officials aimed to neutralize the activists' humanitarian argument and reframe the narrative. The incident became a battle of images and words, each side vying for global opinion. The Madleen's voyage was a direct response to Gaza's unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Over 600 days of war had left tens of thousands dead and critical infrastructure destroyed. Israel's siege, imposed after October 2023, cut off food, water, fuel, and electricity, leaving 2.3 million people in dire need. Aid allowed through land crossings was consistently described as tragically insufficient by the UN and aid groups. Hunger spread rapidly. By April 2025, 1 in 5 Gazans faced starvation, with children suffering most. The blockade, tightened into a near-total seal, was defended by Israel as a security measure, but condemned by human rights groups as collective punishment. The activists argued that a sea route was essential, as land routes had failed to meet the population's needs. Their mission was a desperate plea to open another artery of life into Gaza. The Madleen's journey was a lifeline thrown into a sea of desperation. The Madleen's interception sparked global reactions. France demanded the immediate release of its citizens, including Rima Hassan, while Sweden provided consular support for Greta Thunberg. The involvement of European governments turned the incident into a diplomatic issue, not just a protest. The UN Special Rapporteur voiced strong support for the flotilla, calling for more civilian-led aid missions. Hamas condemned the interception as state terrorism, while small protests in Israel showed domestic dissent. The incident exposed deep divisions over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the tactics used by all sides. The Madleen became a new flashpoint in a long-standing crisis. After interception, the Madleen's activists were taken to Ashdod, Israel, and processed for deportation. Israeli authorities planned to show them videos of the October 7th attacks, framing it as an educational measure. Critics called it punitive. The activists faced expulsion. Their protest met with swift removal. The fate of the aid was contentious. Israel promised to inspect and transfer it to Gaza via land crossings. For the activists, this was a partial failure. Their goal of breaking the blockade and opening a maritime corridor was thwarted. The seizure of the Madleen was a major setback for the Freedom Flotilla coalition, which had already faced interference with other vessels. The incident sent a clear message. Israel would enforce its blockade regardless of who was on board. The activists' detention and the ship's confiscation became a powerful deterrent to future missions. The struggle over aid delivery continued, with no easy resolution in sight. The Madleen's story is a stark reminder of the risks activists take to deliver aid where official channels fail. Civilian-led missions like this highlight the moral imperative to help those suffering, even when politics blocks the way. The activists' peaceful defiance forced a global conversation about Gaza's crisis and the limits of humanitarian action. Their interception drew international attention, proving that even small acts can spotlight injustice. The incident raises hard questions. How do we balance security with the duty to protect civilians from starvation? Israel sees the blockade as survival. Activists and human rights groups see it as collective punishment. The path forward demands urgent political solutions that guarantee both security and human rights. The call for unimpeded aid delivery to Gaza must be heeded. Civilian suffering should never be a tool of war. The Madleen's voyage, though stopped, is a call to action for governments to create safe, reliable channels for relief. Until peace is achieved, the sea will call to those compelled to act for humanity.